Why did you leave our mom? Those 7 words stopped my heart. Not because they were loud. Not because the 3 little girls standing in front of me were crying. But because every single one of them looked straight into my eyes, as if they already knew me. It was a warm Saturday afternoon in Franklin Square Park outside Nashville, Tennessee. The playground was packed. Parents laughed. Kids screamed down the slides. Dogs chased tennis balls. Someone nearby played old country music from a portable speaker. It was the kind of peaceful afternoon that usually helped me forget the last 8 years. Usually. I sat alone on a green wooden bench with a paper cup of black coffee in one hand while my 8-year-old son, Ethan, climbed across the monkey bars with his friends. Life wasn't perfect. But after years of rebuilding, it was finally quiet. Or so I thought. Daddy. Ethan waved from across the playground. Watch this. He jumped from one platform to another and landed perfectly. I laughed. Nice one, buddy. He pumped his fist proudly before running back toward his friends. I leaned against the bench, finally relaxing. Then 3 identical little girls slowly walked toward me. Same blonde hair. Same blue coats. Same white shoes. Same tiny silver necklaces. Even their expressions matched. They couldn't have been older than 7. At first I smiled politely. Maybe they were lost. Maybe they needed help finding their parents. The girl standing in the middle stepped closer. She studied my face. Then she looked down at the faded compass tattoo on my left forearm. Her eyes grew wide. She whispered. You really are him. Before I could even ask what she meant, the little girl on the right asked quietly. Why did you leave our mom? Everything around me disappeared. The playground. The laughter. The music. It all faded into silence. What? I managed to whisper. The smallest girl pointed at my tattoo. Our mommy has the same compass. Every hair on my arm stood up. That tattoo. Nobody knew about that tattoo. Not anymore. Not since. Emily. 8 years earlier. 8 years since I'd last seen the woman I once planned to marry. 8 years since she vanished from my life without a goodbye. 8 years since everyone told me she had moved on. No marriage. No children. At least. That's what I believed. The middle girl tilted her head. Mommy cries when she looks at hers. I stared at them. Unable to breathe. Unable to think. Unable to understand what was happening. Before I could say another word, a terrified female voice echoed across the park. Girls. The 3 girls froze. I slowly looked up. A woman was running toward us. Dark sunglasses. Long beige coat. Blonde hair tied back. She looked panicked. Like she'd just seen a ghost. The closer she got, the harder my heart pounded. No. It couldn't be. She stopped about 20 feet away. Pulled off her sunglasses. Our eyes met. Emily. 8 years. 8 long years. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us moved. The girls looked back and forth between us. Finally. One of them smiled innocently. Mom. We found him. Emily's face turned completely white. She grabbed the girl's hands almost instantly. We're leaving. One of the girls frowned. But Mommy. You said Daddy left because he stopped loving you. Emily's eyes filled with panic. Not now. But isn't this him? Silence. Complete silence. People around us had started noticing. Parents slowed down. Children stopped running. Even Ethan looked over from across the playground. I finally found my voice. Emily. She wouldn't look at me. Please. Nothing. You owe me an explanation. Her hands trembled. I don't owe you anything. My chest tightened. The girls said you told them I left. She swallowed hard. They're children. They're repeating what they heard. I took one slow step forward. They also said you have my tattoo. Emily looked down. For the first time. She had no answer. One of the little girls suddenly grabbed her mother's sleeve. Mom. Is he the man in the old picture? Emily immediately snapped. Enough. Her voice shocked even the girls. They all became quiet. I had never seen Emily lose control like that. Not even years ago. Something was terribly wrong. Then Ethan ran toward us. Dad? He stopped beside me. Looked at the three girls. Then at Emily. Who are they? I didn't know what to say. Before I could answer. The middle girl smiled warmly at Ethan. Hi. I'm Lily. This is Ava. And this is Chloe. Ethan smiled back. I'm Ethan. Then he asked the question none of us were prepared for. Why is everyone crying? Emily quickly wiped her eyes. No one's crying. But she was. I knew those tears. She only cried when she was scared. And Emily Carter. The strongest woman I'd ever. Nobody spoke. The wind carried the sound of children laughing somewhere behind us, but inside that tiny circle near the park bench, everything felt frozen. Emily looked like she wanted to run. I looked like I had forgotten how to breathe. The three girls stared at me with innocent curiosity. And Ethan. He simply looked confused. Dad? He tugged on my sleeve. Do you know them? I swallowed. I don't know. It was the truth. At least. It was the only truth I still believed. Emily finally broke the silence. Girls. We're leaving. But Mom. Lily looked disappointed. You said if we ever met him we'd ask. Emily's face tightened. I changed my mind. The triplets exchanged confused looks. Children always notice when adults lie. Especially when it's their parents. Ava pointed toward my arm again. Can I see the compass? Emily immediately grabbed her wrist. No. But. No. Her voice cracked. She wasn't protecting the girls. She was protecting herself. That realization hit me harder than anything else. Because Emily had never been afraid to face anyone. Unless. She was hiding something. I finally asked the question that had been burning inside me. How old are they? Emily didn't answer. I repeated it. Emily. How old are your daughters? 7. 7. The word echoed in my head. 7 years old. I quickly did the math. 8 years since she'd disappeared. 7-year-old triplets. My stomach twisted. No. That couldn't be. There was no way. Was there? Ethan looked between all of us. Dad. Why are you shaking? Only then did I notice my coffee had spilled onto the sidewalk. My hand wouldn't stop trembling. I looked directly at Emily. When did you get married? Her jaw tightened. I didn't. What? I've never been married. For a second. My brain simply stopped working. No husband. No wedding. Then. Who was their father? Before I could ask. A cheerful older woman walked over pushing a stroller. Oh my goodness. She smiled at me. There you are. She looked toward Emily. I've been watching these little angels for years. Then she looked at me. So you're finally back. Emily's eyes widened. No. But it was already too late. I frowned. What do you mean? The woman laughed. Those girls talk about you all the time. They've been waiting to meet their daddy. Emily closed her eyes. Like she'd just lost the last battle she was trying to fight. The old woman immediately noticed something was wrong. Oh. I'm sorry. I thought. Emily forced a weak smile. It's okay, Mrs. Collins. No harm done. But there was harm. A lot of it. Mrs. Collins slowly walked away, clearly embarrassed. The damage was already done. I stared at Emily. My daddy? Emily whispered. They don't understand. They're children. They ask questions. So you lied to them? I protected them. By telling them I abandoned them. I had no choice. No choice. My voice became louder than I intended. Nearby parents started glancing over. Ethan grabbed my hand. Dad. It's okay. But it wasn't. Not even close. I lowered my voice. Emily. If they're not mine. Tell me. If they are. Tell me. Either way. I'm done living in the dark. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She looked exhausted. Like she'd been carrying something impossibly heavy for years. Finally. She whispered. Not here. I almost laughed. Not here. You disappear for 8 years. Our first conversation is interrupted by 3 girls calling me their father. And now you want to say, not here. She nodded. Please. I looked at Ethan. He was scared. The triplets looked scared too. Whatever happened next? It couldn't happen in front of them. I took a deep breath. Fine. Where? Emily hesitated. Then quietly answered. The coffee shop across the street. I nodded once. 1 hour. You tell me everything. If you walk away again. You'll never see me again. Emily looked straight into my eyes. I won't run. Not this time. 20 minutes later. Ethan sat beside me inside Miller's coffee house, eating a blueberry muffin. The 3 little girls shared one giant chocolate cookie across the room. None of them understood the storm that was about to hit. Emily returned from the counter carrying 2 coffees. Just like she used to. She placed one in front of me without asking. Black. No sugar. My favorite. She still remembered. That hurt more than I expected. For almost a minute. Neither of us touched the cups. Finally I spoke. Start from the day you disappeared. Emily stared at the table. I never wanted to leave you. I laughed bitterly. That's a terrible way to start. She nodded slowly. I know. I deserve that. Then she looked up. What if I told you? I spent 8 years believing. You were D. For a long moment. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I simply stared at the envelope lying between us. Michael's handwriting. There was no mistaking it. Every birthday card. Every Christmas gift. Every note he had ever left on my toolbox looked exactly like this. Emily gently pushed the envelope closer. Please. You need to read it. My hands shook as I opened the flap. Inside was a folded letter. Yellowed with age. The paper had been opened hundreds of times. The creases were almost tearing apart. I unfolded it carefully. The first line made my blood run cold. Daniel. If you're reading this, something went terribly wrong. I frowned. What? I kept reading. Emily watched every expression on my face. Emily deserves to know the truth. I couldn't protect either of you anymore. What the hell? I whispered. Halfway down the page. My eyes landed on a sentence that changed everything. The construction site explosion killed Daniel instantly. They identified him through personal belongings. I stopped reading. My heart slammed against my ribs. No. Emily quietly nodded. Keep reading. I forced myself. I buried what I believed was your body. My vision blurred. There had never been an explosion. Not involving me. I looked up. What is this? Emily took a slow breath. The letter I received 3 days after you stopped answering your phone. I never wrote this. I know. I was told you died. I stared at her. Who told you? She looked down. Michael. Silence. Complete silence. No. I shook my head. My brother would never. He came to my apartment. He cried. He held me while I cried. He planned your memorial. He showed me this letter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Michael? The same brother who practically raised me after our father died? The same man I trusted with everything? Emily reached into her purse again. This time she placed an old newspaper clipping on the table. Local carpenter killed in industrial fire. The article had my picture. My picture. Under a headline announcing my death. I stared at it for nearly 30 seconds. This is fake. Emily nodded. I know that now. But 8 years ago. I believed every word. My chest tightened. Someone had printed an obituary. Someone had arranged a funeral. Someone had convinced everyone that I was dead. But why? Emily closed her eyes. I asked myself that every day. I still don't know. Across the cafe. The triplets laughed as Ethan taught them a card game. None of them had any idea their lives were about to change forever. I looked back at Emily. When did you realize I wasn't dead? She swallowed. 6 months ago. I stared at her. 6 months? She nodded. I saw you. Where? Television. What? There was a local news story. You restored furniture for a veterans charity. I remembered. The interview had lasted maybe 30 seconds. She smiled sadly. I dropped my coffee when I saw your face. So why didn't you contact me? I tried. I drove to your shop. You weren't there. I came back 3 more times. I lost my nerve. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For 8 years. We had lived less than 40 miles apart. Thinking the other one was gone forever. One because of grief. The other because of betrayal. I rubbed my forehead. This doesn't make sense. Emily quietly whispered. It gets worse. She looked toward the girls. They don't know. They think you left. Because I couldn't explain. That the man they asked about had supposedly died before they were born. My eyes slowly drifted toward the 3 little girls. Lily. Ava. Chloe. Each one laughing with Ethan. Each one wearing the same silver necklace. Each one looking strangely familiar. I whispered the question I had been afraid to ask since the park. Emily. She already knew. Her eyes filled with tears. Before she could answer. The cafe door suddenly opened. A tall man stepped inside. Gray jacket. Dark baseball cap. He froze the instant he saw me. I froze too. No. It couldn't be. Michael. My brother. The color drained from his face. He wasn't surprised to see Emily. He was terrified to see Me. For nearly 5 seconds. Neither of us moved. Then Michael did something that confirmed every fear growing inside me. He turned around. And ran. Michael ran. For a split second, I couldn't move. My older brother, the man I hadn't seen in almost 9 years, had looked me dead in the eyes. And ran like he'd seen a ghost. Maybe he had. I shot up from my chair. Daniel. Emily grabbed my wrist. Don't leave. I have to. He'll disappear again. She was right. If Michael got away now, I might never learn the truth. I looked at Ethan. Buddy. He looked up from the table where he was teaching the triplets a card trick. Yeah, Dad. I'm going outside for a few minutes. Mrs. Carter, the cafe owner, had known me for years. She immediately walked over. I'll keep an eye on them. I nodded. Thank you. Then I ran. Michael was already halfway across the parking lot. Michael. He didn't stop. He reached his pickup truck. His hands shook so badly he dropped his keys. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in my brother's eyes. Real fear. Not guilt. Not embarrassment. Fear. He finally unlocked the truck. Just as he grabbed the door handle, I caught him. I slammed the door shut. What are you doing? I shouted. He refused to look at me. Move. No. Daniel. Move. No. He closed his eyes. I can't. You can't. You made the whole world think I was dead. His shoulders collapsed. People in the parking lot had started watching. A man pumping gas stopped. A woman loading groceries into her SUV stared at us. Michael noticed. Not here. I don't care. You will. No. I stepped closer. Tell me why. His voice cracked. You really don't remember? My anger paused. Remember what? He stared into my eyes. For several seconds. Then whispered. You honestly don't remember that night? What night? The bridge. Bridge? My heart skipped. Bridge. The word sounded familiar. Like hearing a song you hadn't listened to in years. Pieces. Tiny pieces. Started flashing through my mind. Rain. A truck. Headlights. Someone screaming. Then. Nothing. Just darkness. I grabbed my head. What bridge? Michael's face changed. He looked confused now. You don't remember the accident? What accident? For the first time. My brother looked terrified for an entirely different reason. Oh my God. He whispered. You really don't know. What don't I know? He leaned against his truck. His breathing became uneven. I thought. They told me. He stopped talking. They. Who are they? Michael looked toward the cafe. Toward Emily. Toward the children. Then back at me. We can't talk here. I laughed bitterly. You've had 8 years. You'll talk now. He slowly reached into his jacket pocket. Pulled out an old leather wallet. Opened it. Removed a faded photograph. Without saying a word. He handed it to me. I looked down. It was me. Standing beside Emily. Both of us smiling. She was pregnant. Very pregnant. My knees almost gave out. What? I whispered. I had never seen this photograph before. I looked closer. My hand rested protectively over her stomach. Written on the back. In Emily's handwriting. Were 4 words. 20 weeks. Triplets. Our miracle. My breathing stopped. I looked up. No. Michael nodded slowly. Yes. The girls. They're yours. Everything around me disappeared. The parking lot. The traffic. The people. Nothing existed except that photograph. Triplets. My daughters. I looked back toward the cafe window. 3 little girls. Laughing with Ethan. My son. His sisters. And they didn't even know. I felt tears running down my face before I realized I was crying. I have daughters. Michael nodded. You always did. I grabbed his jacket. Why didn't you tell me? His eyes filled with tears. I thought you knew. I thought you left. You thought I died. Someone lied to both of us. He whispered. Yes. But it wasn't me. I froze. What? I lied afterward. But I didn't start it. Those words changed everything. Because if Michael hadn't created the lie, then someone else had. Someone powerful enough to convince an entire town that I was dead. Someone powerful enough to separate a family before it even began. Someone who still hadn't been named. I couldn't stop looking through the cafe window. 3 little girls. My daughters. For 7 years they had laughed. Cried. Taken their first steps. Celebrated birthdays. Lost teeth. Started school. All without me. Not because I abandoned them. Because someone stole those years from me. My hand started shaking. Michael. I whispered. Tell me everything. He looked exhausted. Older than I remembered. Like he'd been carrying a secret far too heavy for one man. You deserve the truth. Damn right I do. He nodded slowly. It started the night of the bridge. 8 years earlier. Rain poured so hard that night it was almost impossible to see the road. I was driving home from Knoxville after meeting with a supplier. Emily had called me twice. She wanted to tell me something important. I remembered that much. But after that, everything became pieces. Broken pieces. Michael took a deep breath. You called me at 10:43. I did. You sounded terrified. You said someone was following you. My heart skipped. Following me? I told you to pull over somewhere public. You said you couldn't. You kept saying. Michael stopped talking. What? He looked directly into my eyes. You kept saying. They're trying to kill me. I stared at him. No. You never told me that. I couldn't. Why? Because when I reached the bridge, you were gone. What? Your truck had crashed through the guardrail. My breathing became shallow. There were police. Fire trucks. An ambulance. They said nobody could have survived. But they never found me. I know. I kept telling them that. They wouldn't listen. They found your wallet. Your phone. Your jacket. They assumed. You went into the river. I closed my eyes. Tiny flashes came back. Cold water. Pain. Darkness. Someone pulling me. Then. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Michael continued. They searched for 6 days. No body. But eventually. The county declared you legally dead. I slowly opened my eyes. If they never found me, how did I survive? Michael looked away. I don't know. You don't know. I never found out. Because 2 weeks later, you walked into town. I frowned. What? You were alive. But you didn't know who you were. The words hit me harder than anything else. Memory loss. Suddenly, everything made sense. The nightmares. The missing pieces. The strange feeling that parts of my life had simply disappeared. Michael nodded. The doctors called it traumatic retrograde amnesia. They said your memories might return. Or they might never return. I leaned against the truck. So I was alive. Alive. And you still let Emily believe I was dead? Michael's face filled with shame. No. At first, I wanted to tell her. So why didn't you? His answer came so quietly. I almost missed it. Because Dad asked me not to. I froze. My father? Michael nodded. He said Emily deserved a fresh start. He said, you'd never be the same. He was scared. Scared of what? That you'd remember. What happened before the crash? The sentence echoed inside my head. Before the crash. What happened before the crash? Something bigger had happened. Something everyone was afraid I'd remember. Michael. What happened before the bridge? He swallowed. I can't. You can. I promised. I don't care. You don't understand. I understand enough. You stole 8 years from me. You stole my daughters. You stole Emily. You stole my family. His eyes filled with tears. No. I thought I was protecting all of you. From what? Long silence. Then. He whispered one name. Richard Sullivan. I frowned. The name meant nothing. Who? Michael looked around the parking lot before answering. Emily's father. Everything stopped. Emily's father. The wealthy real estate developer. The millionaire everyone in town admired. What does he have to do with this? Michael closed his eyes. Everything. My heart began pounding again. Because I suddenly remembered one thing. One tiny memory. Richard Sullivan. Standing in front of me. The week before the accident. Pointing his finger at my chest. And saying. You'll never marry my daughter. Another flash. Emily crying. Holding my hand. Telling me. We're pregnant. Another flash. Richard's face. Filled with rage. Another. Someone grabbing me outside my truck. Then darkness. I stumbled backward. Michael caught my arm. You remembered. I looked at him. No. I only remembered enough. To know this wasn't an accident. Michael slowly nodded. No. It wasn't. My legs gave out. I sat on the curb beside Michael's truck. The afternoon sun was still shining. Families were still walking through the parking lot. Children were still laughing. And somehow, the entire world kept moving as if mine hadn't just stopped. Richard Sullivan. Emily's father. The man who shook my hand the first day I met him. The man who smiled at our engagement party. The man who toasted our future. The man I respected. Michael sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Finally, I asked the question I was afraid to hear. Did Richard try to kill me? Michael closed his eyes. I don't know. You don't know. I know he threatened you. I know he hated the idea of Emily marrying you. I know he wanted someone wealthier. But I never saw him order anything. I looked at him. Then why hide everything? Michael rubbed his face. Because after the accident, Richard came to me. My stomach tightened. He offered me money. How much? $500,000. $500,000. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He told me. Emily deserves someone who can actually provide for her. I laughed bitterly. Provide? I owned my own business. I loved her. I was going to be a father. Michael nodded. I know. I refused. But then. He stopped. But then what? He threatened Mom. The color drained from my face. What? He said if I reopened the investigation, our mother would lose everything. The house. Her pension. Even Dad's insurance settlement. I clenched my fists. So you chose silence. He looked down. I thought I was saving the family. No. I said quietly. You destroyed it. Those words hit him harder than any punch ever could. He broke down. Actually broke down. I'm sorry. I've replayed that decision every day for 8 years. I watched Emily bury an empty casket. I watched you build another life. I watched those girls grow up without their father. I hated myself every single day. His voice cracked. But every year it became harder to tell the truth. Because the longer a lie lives, the harder it is to kill. I stood up. I'm going inside. Michael grabbed my arm. Daniel. What? Don't tell the girls yet. I stared at him. They deserve the truth. They deserve the right truth. What does that mean? They don't even know Richard is their grandfather. I frowned. What? Emily never told them. Apparently. After learning what her father had done, she cut him out of their lives forever. She changed cities. Changed jobs. Changed everything. She raised the girls alone. Never accepted $1 from him. Not one. That surprised me. After everything, Emily had still protected our daughters. I walked back toward the cafe. Every step felt heavier than the last. Through the front window, I watched Ethan laughing with Lily. Ava had somehow convinced him to trade cookies. Chloe was teaching him a clapping game. Watching them together, something happened inside me. I didn't see 4 children anymore. I saw brother, sisters. A family that had never known it was a family. Tears blurred my vision again. 8 birthdays. 8 Christmas mornings. 8 first days of school. Gone. Stolen. Not because of fate. Because of choices. Someone chose to separate us. Someone chose to let little girls grow up believing their father abandoned them. Someone chose to let a little boy grow up without knowing he had sisters. No amount of apologies could ever return those years. When I walked inside, Emily looked up immediately. She knew. She saw it in my face. You told him. She whispered. I nodded once. He told me enough. The girls kept laughing. Completely unaware. I sat across from Emily. For a long moment. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I asked the question that mattered more than anything else. Did you ever stop loving me? Emily's eyes filled with tears instantly. Never. Not for one single day. The pain in her voice wasn't acting. It wasn't guilt. It was grief. The kind that never really leaves. I visited your grave every Sunday. She whispered. I took flowers. I talked to you. I told you about the babies. My first ultrasound. Their first kick. The day they were born. The first time they smiled. The first time they called me mommy. Her shoulders shook. And every birthday, I'd sit beside your headstone and tell you how much they looked like you. I couldn't stop crying. Because while I'd spent years believing she'd moved on, she had spent those same years talking to a gravestone that belonged to nobody. Then Lily walked over holding a drawing. "Mister." She smiled. "I made this." I looked down. It was a picture of 5 people. Emily, the triplets, and me. All holding hands. "Above you, they've found each other." Those 4 words echoed inside the black SUV. The man behind the wheel never looked away from the cafe. He simply waited. Watching. Patiently. Like he'd done this before. Then, the SUV disappeared into traffic. Neither Emily nor I noticed. Inside the cafe, life felt strangely normal again. The triplets were laughing. Ethan had somehow convinced Chloe that he was unbeatable at Connect 4. She was determined to prove him wrong. Watching them, I couldn't stop smiling. Then reality hit me. I'd already missed 7 years. 7 birthdays. 7 Christmas mornings. 7 first days of school. I wasn't about to miss another day. I looked at Emily. "I'm not leaving again." Her eyes immediately filled with tears. "You don't have to." "I do. I've already lost enough." For the first time since we'd seen each other. She reached across the table. Slowly. Carefully. Her fingers touched mine. Not romantically. Just familiarly. Like 2 people who had spent years believing the other was gone forever. Neither of us pulled away. An hour later, we walked together toward the parking lot. The girls walked ahead with Ethan. Laughing. Talking. Arguing over ice cream flavors. Emily stood beside me. I don't know how to explain this to them. I looked at the girls. Neither do I. They think you chose to leave. I know. I hate myself for that. I stopped walking. No. She looked confused. You were lied to. You believed I was dead. You were trying to protect them. Emily lowered her head. I still stole you from them. No. Someone else did. Just as we reached our vehicles, a black Ford Explorer slowly rolled past us. Dark windows. No license plate on the front. The driver looked straight at me. Only for a second. Then kept driving. Something about him felt wrong. Emily noticed it too. Do you know him? I shook my head. No. But somehow, my gut disagreed. That evening, I couldn't sleep. Ethan was already in bed. The house was quiet. I sat in my office surrounded by old family photographs. Most of them suddenly meant something completely different. Every memory I'd spent years trying to rebuild now had missing pieces. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello. Silence. Just breathing. Slow. Heavy. Breathing. Who's this? Finally. A man's voice. You should have stayed dead. Click. The call ended. Every hair on my arm stood up. I immediately called back. Number unavailable. No caller ID. Nothing. I sat there staring at my phone. You should have stayed dead. That wasn't a prank. That was a warning. And for the first time since seeing Emily again, I realized something terrifying. Whoever separated us might not be finished. The next morning, Someone knocked on my front door. When I opened it, Michael stood there, holding 3 large storage boxes. I found these. What are they? My attic. I couldn't throw them away. Inside the first box. Photographs. Dozens of them. Emily. Our engagement party. Baby shower invitations. Ultrasound pictures. Cards she'd written me. Then. At the bottom. A small velvet box. I opened it. Inside. Were 2 wedding rings. I looked up. We never got married. Michael nodded. I know. You bought these 3 days before the accident. I picked up the ring. My hand started shaking again. Engraved inside were 4 words. Forever starts with us. I closed my eyes, trying not to imagine the life we'd almost had. Then something slipped out of the velvet box. A folded receipt. Not for the rings. For a hotel. 3 nights before the accident. The reservation listed 2 names. Daniel Walker. Emily Carter. Room 412. Check-in. Never happened. I frowned. What were we doing there? Michael slowly answered. You weren't checking into a hotel. You were meeting someone. Who? He hesitated. The FBI. I stared at him. What? You and Emily had reported Richard Sullivan. Every muscle in my body tightened. Reported him? For what? Michael swallowed hard. For fraud. And. He looked straight into my eyes. Attempted murder. The words barely left my mouth. Michael nodded. I wish I were wrong. I slammed the receipt onto the kitchen table. Start talking. He took a long breath. About 3 weeks before the bridge accident, Emily came to me. She was terrified. Terrified of what? Richard. I frowned. Her father. Michael nodded. He'd been moving money through fake construction companies. Millions of dollars. You accidentally discovered it. I stared at him. I don't remember any of that. I know. But Emily did. Apparently. One afternoon Emily had stopped by Richard Sullivan's office to surprise him for lunch. Instead, she overheard a meeting. Richard wasn't talking about real estate. He was talking about shell companies. Fake invoices. Bribing inspectors. Money laundering. She secretly recorded part of the conversation on her phone. At first, she didn't know what to do. Then she came to me. According to Michael, we spent almost 2 weeks collecting evidence. Bank statements. Emails. Photos. Contracts. Everything. Emily wanted to turn it over to federal investigators. I agreed. Not because I wanted revenge. Because it was the right thing to do. We even had a meeting scheduled. 3 days before the accident. The same hotel on the receipt. Room 412. So why didn't we meet them? I asked. Michael slowly answered. Because someone found out. Silence. Richard? I don't know. But the meeting was cancelled. The FBI agent called. He said their office had been compromised. We were told to wait. 2 days later. You disappeared. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't just family drama anymore. Someone had tried to silence us. I stood up. Where's the evidence? Michael looked away. I thought Richard destroyed everything. You thought. I never saw it again. Emily had the original recordings. You had backup copies. After the accident. They disappeared. No hard drive. No laptop. Nothing. Everything vanished. Almost like someone had cleaned the house. Professional. Calculated. Planned. At that exact moment, someone knocked on my front door. 3 quick knocks. Michael and I looked at each other. Neither of us was expecting anyone. I opened the door. Emily stood there. The triplets weren't with her. Instead, she looked terrified. What happened? She stepped inside. I got a phone call. My heart sank. What kind of call? She swallowed. A man. He said. Her voice broke. He said if I wanted my daughters to stay safe, I'd stop looking for ghosts. The room went silent. Michael slowly closed the curtains. Emily looked between both of us. What aren't you telling me? I looked at Michael. Then back at Emily. I think someone has been watching us. Her face turned pale. I knew it. What? The black SUV. I froze. You saw it too? She nodded. It followed us yesterday. I thought I was imagining things. No. Neither of us had imagined it. Someone was watching. Someone knew we'd reunited. And someone wanted us separated again. The next hour passed in complete silence. We checked every window. Locked every door. Turned off every light. It felt ridiculous. Until Ethan walked downstairs. Dad? There's a man outside. Every muscle in my body locked. What man? The one sitting in the black truck. I ran to the front window. Carefully pulled the curtain aside. Across the street. Parked beneath a large oak tree. Was the same black SUV. Engine running. Windows tinted. Watching the house. Watching us. Watching. My children. My blood boiled. I grabbed my keys. Daniel. Emily shouted. Don't. But I was already running. The SUV saw me. Its brake lights flashed. Then. It sped away. I jumped into my truck and followed. For nearly 15 minutes. We raced through Nashville traffic. The SUV never broke traffic laws. Never drove recklessly. Whoever was behind the wheel knew exactly what they were doing. Then. They suddenly turned into an underground parking garage. I followed. Level 1. Nothing. Level 2. Nothing. Level 3. Empty. The SUV had vanished. There was only one exit. I never saw it leave. Almost like it had disappeared. I sat there in complete silence. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. I answered immediately. Who are you? The same calm male voice replied. You've always been stubborn. Who is this? I gave you one chance. You should have stayed dead. Click. The call disconnected. But this time. Before the screen went dark. A text message appeared. One photo. Nothing else. I opened it. My hands immediately started shaking. It was taken only minutes earlier. Through my own living room window. Emily. Ethan. Lily. Ava. Chloe. All sitting inside my house. Someone had photographed. My hands went numb. I read the message again. You're already too late. The picture had been taken less than 5 minutes earlier. Someone had stood outside my home. Close enough to photograph my children through the living room window. While I was chasing a fake lead. I jumped back into my truck. Every red light felt like an hour. Every slow driver felt like torture. I couldn't stop thinking. What if they were already inside? What if I had left my family alone just long enough for someone to hurt them? I pushed the accelerator harder. For the first time in years. I was genuinely afraid. Not for myself. For my children. All 4 of them. When I turned onto my street, 3 police cars were parked outside my house. My heart stopped. No. I slammed on the brakes before the truck had even fully stopped. I ran. An officer stepped in front of me. "Sir, you can't. That's my house." He immediately moved aside. I burst through the front door. "Ethan. Dad." My son came running. I dropped to my knees and hugged him tighter than I ever had before. He looked confused. "I'm okay." "I know." I whispered. "I know." Then I looked around. Emily. Lily. Ava. Chloe. All safe. For a moment. I simply stood there thanking God. Emily walked over. "What happened?" I handed her my phone. She looked at the picture. Her face turned completely white. "Oh my God." A detective introduced himself. Detective Marcus Hayes. Middle 40s. Calm voice. Sharp eyes. The kind of man who noticed everything. "We received an anonymous call." "What kind of call?" "Someone reported a possible kidnapping at this address." I frowned. "There was no kidnapping." "I know. Whoever called wanted us here." "Why?" He looked directly at me. "To distract everyone." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He nodded toward the backyard. "Come with me." The back fence had been cut open. Clean. Professional. No fingerprints. No footprints. Just one small cardboard box sitting in the grass. The bomb squad had already checked it. Empty. Except for one thing. Detective Hayes opened the evidence bag. Inside was an old silver compass. My compass. The one I'd lost the night of the bridge accident. I stared at it. Impossible. It had disappeared 8 years ago. Hayes looked at me carefully. "You recognize it?" I nodded. "It belonged to me." He slowly closed the bag. "Then whoever did this knows exactly who you are." That night, nobody slept. Emily stayed with the girls. Ethan slept beside me on the living room couch. Every light in the house stayed on. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps outside. Very soft. Very slow. I quietly picked up the baseball bat beside the couch. Walked toward the front window. Nothing. Then. Knock. 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 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same rhythm as before. I opened the door immediately. Nobody. Only a small brown envelope. Lying on the welcome mat. I looked both ways. The street was empty. Completely silent. I picked up the envelope. Inside. One photograph. Nothing else. It showed Emily. Very pregnant. Standing beside me. Both of us smiling. Neither of us had ever seen that picture before. On the back. Someone had written 6 words. Ask Richard about Lake Hollow. The next morning. Detective Hayes returned. I handed him the photograph. He studied it for almost a minute. Then suddenly looked up. Lake Hollow. You've heard of it? He nodded. It isn't a lake anymore. What? It was drained 12 years ago. Why? A federal environmental investigation. I frowned. What does that have to do with us? Hayes looked uneasy. Richard Sullivan owned the land. My heartbeat quickened. Take me there. 40 minutes later. The four of us. Me. Emily. Michael. Detective Hayes. Stood beside what used to be Lake Hollow. Now it was nothing but cracked earth and tall grass. Abandoned. Forgotten. Hayes pointed toward an old wooden cabin near the tree line. That building wasn't here 12 years ago. Michael looked confused. Someone built it later. We slowly walked toward it. Every step felt heavier. The front door hung slightly open. Dust covered everything. The place had clearly been abandoned years ago. Then Emily stopped walking. She pointed toward the far wall. Daniel. I turned. Pinned to the wall was a giant map. Covered with photographs. Strings. Notes. License plates. Phone numbers. Every picture was of us. Me. Emily. The girls. Ethan. Even Michael. Some photos were recent. Others dated back nearly a decade. Someone had documented our entire lives. Every movement. Every address. Every birthday. Every school. Every job. For 8 years. Emily grabbed my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. This isn't random. She whispered. No. Erase him. Those 2 words echoed through the cabin. Not kill. Erase. Someone hadn't wanted me dead. They wanted me. Forgotten. Invisible. As if I had never existed. I stared at the frozen image on the projector. One of the masked men suddenly removed his hood for less than a second. Detective Hayes immediately paused the footage. Zoom in. The grainy image sharpened. My heart stopped. Michael whispered. No. Emily grabbed my arm. What is it? I couldn't answer. Because I recognized the face. Not completely. Just enough. I'd seen him before. Years ago. At Richard Sullivan's Christmas party. He wasn't family. He wasn't security. He was Richard's attorney. Nathan Briggs. The man who handled every legal document Richard ever signed. Hayes immediately took pictures of the screen. If he's alive. He may be running everything now. The mysterious voice laughed through the speakers. Very good, detective. You've always been smarter than the others. Hayes pointed his gun toward the ceiling. Where are you? You'll know soon enough. Then. Every speaker in the cabin went silent. Click. The front door unlocked. The lights came back on. The projector shut off. It was over. Almost like whoever had trapped us wanted us to leave. Wanted us to follow the clues. Emily looked terrified. This feels like a game. Hayes shook his head. No. It's a warning. 30 minutes later. Federal agents surrounded the cabin. Hayes had quietly called them while we searched the building. Forensic teams photographed everything. Fingerprints. DNA. Documents. Hard drives. But one discovery changed everything. An old desktop computer hidden beneath the floorboards. The hard drive was damaged. Almost destroyed. One technician smiled. Not enough. What? I think we can recover most of it. By sunset. We were sitting inside the FBI field office in Nashville. A digital forensic specialist connected the recovered drive. Thousands of files appeared. Photographs. Bank transfers. Voice recordings. Surveillance reports. Then. One folder. Labeled simply. Family. Hayes opened it. Inside were 4 names. Daniel Walker. Emily Carter. Ethan Walker. Triplets. Under each name. A single status. Observe. Except mine. Mine said. Remove. The room became silent. Emily quietly started crying. Not loudly. Just enough for me to hear. I reached over and held her hand. For the first time in 8 years. Neither of us cared who saw. Because after everything, love hadn't disappeared. It had simply been buried beneath lies. Then the technician spoke again. Detective. You need to hear this. An audio file started playing. At first. Only static. Then. A familiar voice. Richard Sullivan. Even Emily recognized it instantly. If anything happens to me, Nathan finishes the project. Emily covered her mouth. No. Richard continued. Daniel Walker can never reunite with my daughter. The children must never know the truth. If they become a family, everything we've built dies with us. The recording ended. Hayes looked around the room. Project Phoenix wasn't about revenge. It was about control. But control over what? The technician answered. I think I know. He opened another folder. Blueprints. Land deeds. Trust agreements. Then. A birth certificate. Lily Walker. Father. Blank. Attached beneath it. A legal document. Trust value. $480 million. I frowned. What is this? The technician kept reading. The triplets inherited shares in a family trust. Emily looked confused. My father never told me about any trust. He wouldn't. Hayes answered. Because the girls were never supposed to inherit it. Who was? The technician slowly looked at me. You. Silence. Complete silence. He continued. The trust automatically transfers to your direct descendants. If you're declared legally dead, the money goes elsewhere. Michael whispered. So that's why. Hayes nodded. They erased Daniel. To steal nearly $500 million. I couldn't believe it. This had never been about love. Or Emily. Or even me. It had started. With money. But over time. It had become something far worse. Because people who spend years protecting a lie will do almost anything to keep it alive. And somewhere. Nathan Briggs now knew. We had uncovered everything Nathan Briggs knew. That much was certain. The question was. How far would he go to keep the truth buried? None of us had to wait long for the answer. 3 days later. The FBI moved Emily, the girls, Ethan, and me into a secure safe house outside Nashville. Federal agents stood guard 24 hours a day. Every phone call was monitored. Every visitor was screened. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was living inside someone else's movie. But every morning, I woke up to the sound of 4 children laughing together. Ethan. Lily. Ava. Chloe. Watching them slowly become brother and sisters made every painful year worth surviving. They didn't know the whole truth yet. But they knew one thing. I wasn't leaving again. Not ever. 1 week later. Detective Hayes walked into the safe house carrying a thick folder. He smiled. It's over. Emily looked up. What happened? They found Nathan Briggs. Alive? Hayes nodded. He tried leaving the country. He never made it to the airport. The FBI arrested him before sunrise. Inside his private office, agents recovered every missing piece of evidence. The original recordings. Emily's phone backup. Bank transfers. Fake death certificates. Bribery records. And one handwritten notebook. Nathan's personal journal. Inside, he admitted everything. Richard Sullivan had started Project Phoenix years earlier. His only daughter had fallen in love with a man he considered beneath the Sullivan name. Me. When Emily became pregnant, Richard panicked. If we married, control of the Sullivan family trust would eventually pass to our children. Almost $500 million would leave the Sullivan bloodline as Richard intended it. His solution: destroy the relationship. Stage my death. Separate us forever. He never planned for me to survive. And when I did, Nathan simply kept the lie alive. Year after year. Until it became impossible to undo. 3 months later, Nathan Briggs stood trial in federal court. Fraud. Conspiracy. Witness tampering. Identity fraud. Attempted murder. Racketeering. The list seemed endless. After 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty on every count. Nathan Briggs was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. When the judge announced the sentence, Nathan finally looked at me. For the first time. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't confident. He looked defeated. Completely defeated. I didn't smile back. Because revenge wasn't what I felt. Relief was. The nightmare was finally over. 6 months later, life looked completely different. Emily and the girls moved into a house only 10 minutes away. Not because we were rushing anything. Because the girls wanted to be close to Ethan. Every weekend, they played soccer together. Built pillow forts. Argued over board games. And every Sunday, we cooked breakfast together. Slowly. Patiently. We rebuilt something none of us thought was possible. Trust. One conversation at a time. One memory at a time. One ordinary day at a time. One evening, Lily climbed onto my lap while we watched the sunset from the back porch. Dad? It was the first time she'd ever called me that. Not Mr. Daniel. Not Daniel. Dad. I smiled. Yeah, sweetheart. She looked up at me with those same blue eyes I'd seen in the park months earlier. Were you really looking for us all this time? My throat tightened. I kissed the top of her head. Every single day. She wrapped both little arms around my neck. I knew it. Across the yard, Ava and Chloe were chasing Ethan with the family dog. Emily stood on the porch watching them. Our eyes met. No words. Just a smile. The kind we'd almost forgotten existed. A year later, Emily and I visited the old cemetery together. The cemetery where she'd spent 8 years talking to a gravestone that never should have existed. Workers quietly removed the fake memorial. Neither of us said much. There wasn't anything left to say. Emily placed one white rose on the empty ground. Goodbye. She whispered. Not goodbye to me. Goodbye to the lie. We walked away together. Hand in hand. Without looking back. Sometimes people ask me if I regret those lost years. Of course I do. I'd give anything to watch my daughters take their first steps. To hear their first words. To hold them the day they were born. Nothing can replace those moments. Nothing. But life taught me something I never expected. You can't change yesterday. You can only decide who you become tomorrow. Richard Sullivan had wealth. Nathan Briggs had power. They believed money could rewrite destiny. They were wrong. Because in the end, the truth waited patiently. And when it finally arrived, it destroyed every lie they had ever built. As for me,